Hi. Thanks first of all to our Argyll and Bute Council Community Development Team. We very much appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this process. I am firstly going to very quickly talk about ABCAN and how we can support local place plans and community climate action beyond this short session. The Argyll and Bute Climate Action Network, ABCAN, is a regional network joining the wider national group of climate action hubs. The majority of local authorities in Scotland now have a climate hub funded by the Scottish Government. ABCAN was established by a consortium of Time for Change, who lobby on matters of climate change, the Third Sector Interface, who manage the distribution of climate action seed funding, and ACT, who deliver the objectives of the hub, employ the staff team, and operate the day-to-day running of the network. I am Jamie Joyce, team lead for ABCAN, and we have part-time staff covering Ollie, Mackay, Helensburgh, Lomond, and Bute and Cowell. ACT also employs the Community Planning Partnership Climate Change Manager, my colleague Andy McPherson, who will be supplying separate information video on climate trends within Argyll and Bute. Additionally, my colleagues Mary Lou, Nicola and Mark have been working with the Cogline Community Council and will provide the third instalment of the climate change focused approach to LPPs with a recap of their delivery. ABCAN has around 10 outcomes that we work to in agreement with the Scottish Government Hubs team, and all the outcomes fit under the four broad objectives on screen. Supporting local place plans with a climate lens is only one of our outcomes, but given that it relates to place shaping and therefore will impact every day, it is significant. Now, if you're involved in local place planning, you will be aware it's a hugely time-consuming piece of work, and I want to clarify at the outset that ABCAN involvement only really set out to support community councils and development trusts ensure that they answer the two questions set out in the Place Standard tool with a climate lens. How can we achieve net zero, and how can we adapt and become resilient to the increasing effects of locked-in climate change? Now, before I finish with my strictly ABCAN information, I just want to make you aware of some of the support on offer. Firstly, we deliver training. We offer free carbon literacy training, which is a full day's training and is certified following assessment. We also offer climate resilience workshops, which run for about an hour and a half. Either or both of these sessions will equip your team or your community or your colleagues with local climate change information, which can be embedded in your local place plans. So these sessions are free only to Argyll and Bute residents, which means they become very useful networking sessions also. We regularly have attendees from all over the area conversing, sharing ideas, building connections, and that is a co-benefit of the training. Conversely though, we can run training specifically for your community to support your local place plan. We need a minimum number of 6 attendees, and this can be delivered face-to-face or online. And we also offer climate action seed funding, though at this time of recording this video, the fund has just closed. This funding can and has been used for engagement and consultation on LPPs with a climate focus. Since late last year, ABCAN has funded 44 different community organisations to deliver 63 projects to the tune of around £55,000, and we do expect more funding will become available next year. I will share details of how to find out more about these shortly, and also how to sign up for membership so you can be the first to find out about this training, funding and networking. I should say it is worth staying in touch and becoming part of the network. Indeed, applying for the fund asks you as a prerequisite to be a member of the ABCAN Hub. We have a responsibility to facilitate networking and grow a strong climate community, so please do stay in touch. So let's move on now to the subject of climate change directly. I mentioned mitigation and adaptation previously, but these shouldn't be seen in isolation. The questions about net zero and adaptation and resilience have significant overlap with some examples on screen. Local action on climate change needs to address the decarbonisation and the adaptation. So as mentioned, the Community Planning Partnership Climate Change Manager has been working with Adaptation Scotland on climate trends locally in Argyll and Bute, and I'm going to go on now to Andy's work, which you can watch in a separate video. But to put this in context, this information on screen is to stress the need for climate action in place plans. The world is changing, plans need to reflect that change, need to look into the future where our climate will be different, and we will look at these changes at a local level in a moment. But in this image, we can recognise that even in the highly optimistic, very low emission scenario, we are looking at significant global temperature rise. Two things need to happen. Communities need to be working collectively to do all that we can to contribute to decarbonisation so that we may avoid the worst impacts of climate change globally, but we also need to be preparing for the worst. Given current emission pathways and the challenges in implementing the Paris Agreement, the high emission scenario is used in analysis of trends and projections. This approach is in line with the emerging methodology of the most recent UK's fourth climate change risk assessment. If you could follow now the video from Andy on climate change in Argyll and Bute with the intention that it may help understand how your local place may be affected by climate change, and then you can consider what to do with this information. Please do feel free to contact me on any of the listed details. We are very keen to help. Thank you very much.
This set of 21 slides outlines information on climate trends for Argyll and Bute prepared by SNIFR and the Adaptation Scotland programme, along with links to the climate change strategy for Argyll and Bute currently under development. Overall trends are for hotter, drier summers and warmer, wetter winters, with more variable and severe weather and rising sea level. SNIFR's analysis also goes into more detail for 16 settlements across the region. The next set of slides are taken from material presented by SNIFR at the local place plan workshop run by Argyll and Bute Council's Community Development Team on the 28th of November. Average temperature, precipitation and sea level have all gone up in recent decades. In these graphs, the darker lines show observed temperature and precipitation since the early 1960s, and the lighter lines show projected figures into the 2080s. The strong overlap indicates that we can have a good degree of confidence in how accurate the predicted trends have been so far. These four graphs go into a bit more detail, going into summer and winter variations, and again we see how the overlap between an observed and predicted trends has been strong. The Met Office Local Authority Climate Explorer is a great tool for adding a bit more meaning to some of these trends, giving indications of the changes of number of days that we meet various temperature thresholds. Sea level rise can be subtle and slow, but over time even small increases can have significant impacts. In Argyll and Bute, 80% of the population lives within 1 kilometre of the coast, and we have over 200 kilometres of road within 25 metres of the sea. Moving to individual settlement level, here are annual average temperature and precipitation rates for Dunoon. Once again, we see the strong overlap between observed and predicted trends. Here we have the same trends for Oban, with not a huge difference between these and Dunoon, despite being in very different places. Although the overlap between observed and predicted levels is not so strong here, the overall trend lines are still very similar. Turning to Tobermory, again the overall trends are fairly similar, even though on any given day we can often expect these different locations all to experience the weather differently within these overall regional trends. For all of these projections, we're working to a scenario of high levels of carbon emissions on the basis that global carbon emissions have not dropped enough to prevent some locked-in climate change. Argyll has two tidal gauges at Port Element and Tobermory for measuring sea level rise accurately. To complement these, we have projected sea level rise for other coastal locations, here using Oban and Dunoon. The lines of most likely interest to us here are the green and red lines for the scenarios arising from higher carbon emissions. There are further limitations imposed by the definition of coastal used by the Met Office, where locations such as Helensburgh and Gairloch Head, Aracha and Inverary do not fit within the definition of coastal. To help us to visualise impacts of sea level rise, Dynamic Coast provides a model to illustrate potential sea level rise to levels comparable with the areas for which we have tidal gauge or Met Office projections. Climate Central is another tool that can help to visualise sea level impacts, such as here indicating what a 1 metre increase in sea level could look like. SNIFR and Adaptation have a range of other resources online to help with assessing likely climate impacts and developing resilience. Argyll and Bute Climate Action is the title of the climate change strategy being developed by Argyll Coast and Countryside Trust on behalf of the Argyll and Bute Community Planning Partnership. The Community Planning Partnership consists of the public bodies working in Argyll, along with a range of third sector organisations. The strategy seeks to address the causes of climate change as well as dealing with its impacts, with strong emphasis on community engagement, with a view to making Argyll and Bute climate friendly, climate ready and climate just. Key principles behind the strategy include that it aligns with the CPP 3 main outcomes of transport infrastructure, housing and community well-being, in support of the vision that we make Argyll and Bute climate ready by acting together to understand and adapt to our changing climate. The main risks associated with climate change in Argyll and Bute are heavy rainfall, storms and landslides, flooding, sea level rise and coastal impacts, temperature change, heat wave and drought, multi-hazards and wildfires. The don't knows here typically mean a combination of these. Percentage figures here indicate CPP partners' perception and lived experience of these risks. There's also very strong overlap with the Regional Resilience Partnership's risk register. From analysis of climate trends, published climate and risk plans and stakeholder engagement, the main areas of opportunity within where the Community Planning Partnership is most able to make a difference and complement individual organisations' climate work are policy influence, resilience and carbon literacy training, skills development, collaboration on procurement and supply chains, risk and economic assessment, and infrastructure. But we always also want to be sure to remain open to anything else, particularly within the CPP's scope of influence. There's more detailed information on the climate trends and the tools available at the project page on the ACT website. A lot of this information is top-down from national data sets and stakeholder meetings, but the more that we know about climate impacts in our own places and from our own shared experience, the better we can tailor our own place plans as well as identify actions that can work well across the region. If you want to share your climate knowledge and experience, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, Andy McPherson.
Hi there, my name is Mary Lou and I'm part of the Bute and Cowal ABCAN team along with Nicola and Mark. We've been working in our area since February and we've been working specifically with Colglen communities, doing some place planning with Climate Lens for the last 3 or 4 months. That's us there. We really love this work and we're excited to share our learning so far with the place planning, specifically with this work and all our ABCAN work. We're bringing grassroots and holistic approach, centres care, looks to build meaningful relationships and is specifically finding ways to work with communities on looking at how to make sustainable decisions together on an ongoing basis. We're new to place planning. We've only been working specifically with the place planning toolkit for a short while, and so we're not experts, but we have been learning a lot and excited to share our learning. We brought that down to 4 areas that we wanted to talk about. They are improvise with the toolkit, nurture your community, integrate climate actions, and empower people. And we're just going to spend a couple of minutes looking at each one of them and what we found. So, improvising with the toolkit, we've been using the Place Standard with Climate Lens toolkit, and our feedback has been that people find this very urban centred and not relevant to rural and very rural communities. We spent time going door to door in the community and building up the steering group and listening to that feedback, and through input with them we co-created our own surveys that were relevant to place and survey type questions for the different drop-in events that have been happening. So nurturing community. So people have been really interested in the place planning, but also have a lot of questions about the longevity of it and if it will actually change anything. And so we found it really important to nurture the community and build up the investment from the community through the steering group. And through their input, we've really been able to identify multiple ways of engaging with the community, and also they've helped us to find ways to specifically target those harder to reach voices, and one-to-one chats, door to door, chatting on the phone, online. We've been meeting outside around about the fire or going for walks, and these have all been really helpful for gathering those community stories and helping to shape the survey questions and the consultation strategies. Lots and lots of conversation. We are finding that there's already a lot of knowledge about climate change, and people are already taking action themselves, whether that's in the school or individuals with their home and land or community organisations. And so it's been really useful to bring all this together, to document it and just share what is already going on, and then identify those gaps through key themes, just using the skills and experience already in the community to put on info afternoons, workshops, and also organising film nights and discussions to bridge the gap in understanding how climate change is going to affect Argyll and specific areas in particular. It's just really important to tap into what is already happening within the community and sharing that knowledge within the community, and then identifying gaps and bridging that gap through training or whatever, info sharing. And lastly, empowering people. Been having a lot of feedback about people not wanting to be involved, or not knowing how to be involved, or asking if this is going to be a one-off, and really just understanding that people are quite disconnected from being involved in planning and decision making at a local level, and they're quite used to maybe like a one-off consultation, and that creates this sort of cycle of scepticism and disengagement. What we've been identifying through chats and working with the steering group is that what we can do to help build more cohesion there is to work with all the community organisations to build capacity for this work, and identifying with them what areas they can work on together and building the plan, a community action plan from there. And I guess this will hopefully speak to issues of capacity, because in a small community lots of people are already doing lots of things in their particular area of interest or their particular group, and there is an understanding that climate change is going to affect everyone. So it's just really looking at, okay, where are the areas that we can work together on rolling out a plan, and again, what gaps are there. So perhaps offering training on climate resilience and climate ready leadership. Just to kind of recap, it's just been a short time that we have been involved with colorblind communities, and already learning loads that we're hoping that will help us go forward in our place planning work with other communities in the near future. So to summarise our takeaways and the things that we'd like to share are to improvise with the toolkit and nurture your community, integrate climate actions and empower people. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this presentation, and if anyone has any questions about local place planning and would like to tap into your experience of using the Place Standard Climate Lens toolkit or sharing any other knowledge, then please do be in touch. Thank you.